Recently, I've been playing the bite-sized demo of Ex-Zodiac, a funky rail shooter developed by Ben and Pixeljam and published by Pixeljam. This is the first game I've seen being made with the Godot engine, which I've actually never heard of before. I found the game by just scrolling through Twitter and finding this post saying to contact them about getting a demo early. So I thought, fuck it, worth a shot, and I was surprised to see that I got a response. About a month later, I got a Steam key for the demo 3 days early, redeemed it instantly because of course I did, and yeah, thank you very much for that. The first thing that seriously caught my eye was the visuals. Man, I love how this game looks. It's aiming for this like super colorful, low poly pixel art style, and it just makes the game pop. The shadows have this neat dithering effect and the UI is clean. I think it absolutely nails it in the presentation department. There's also like a surprising amount of customization in the video settings. You can make it look all smooth if you want, or even put it into 4x3 at 15 frames a second if you really want to go for the SNES Star Fox vibe. Though the Star Fox similarities don't end there, as the core gameplay is kind of similar. You pilot the Ultraviolet Mark III, what a cool name. The controls feel pretty smooth and it travels at a good speed, but if you want to pick up the pace, you're able to boost ahead for a short amount of time. You can also tilt the ship to squeeze through narrow gaps, and you can perform a roll. This is useful for dodging the many projectiles the enemies will aim towards you, but you can fire back with either your little lasers or hold down the shoot key to lock onto enemies, then release to fire out homing missiles. Initially, I did find that constantly firing the lasers really strained my fingers, but I realized you need to like tap and hold as it fires in a burst, and once I got the rhythm down, it wasn't really a problem. I can imagine if I was playing this for hours on end, my fingers would probably explode. The lock-on feels pretty weak at first, but there are upgrades littered throughout each stage that will increase the lock-on amount from a pretty pathetic 3 to a scarily strong 7. It feels so good to lock on with all your missiles and fire away at a target, and I think the sound effects is really what sells it. That's not to say the laser's ignored, as it gets a powerful upgrade as well. Maybe even a little overtuned, but I'll show you what I mean when it's relevant. The stages themselves are pretty good, the first level Allura in particular. It's a nice grassy area that with like windmills that transitions to a more city-like area. It's a great first level as it gives you enough time to figure out the controls, understand how to attack, and how the power-ups work by simply putting you into a situation where you're forced to learn. This first part is basically like a hidden tutorial that teaches you everything you really need to know without words. Well, except for telling you how to shoot, but I mean, okay, we'll ignore that. Once it transitions to the city, it feels like the stage has truly started, as there's buildings and electricity and windmills to avoid. This part being really cool as the building's placement means you can only pick one of these power-ups. One being a health recovery, and the other is an upgrade to the laser. So you have to really consider what would be the most useful on the spot. Should I play it safe and heal up, or risk it and upgrade my offense instead? The only change I might make would be to have the names of these power-ups visible before shooting them, just so the choice is a bit more obvious. The second level, Ignite, experiments with the power-ups further by hiding them throughout the stage. Like, in this section, there's small ice arches, and if you fly through all of them, it will reward you with an upgrade, or if you destroy these pipes, it will net you some health. My favorite part of this stage is easily this lava cave, just because it gets really chaotic, with like these drill missile things that you gotta dodge, and there's enemies and lava rocks and bullets, and it's a lot to handle, but it's so fun. The part after the cave is alright. There's like this one guy that can hit you way too fast, which feels a bit cheap. I think the enemy that shoots down the ice pillars instead of directly attacking you is kinda cool, but other than that, it does feel a tad empty. That doesn't matter too much, because I was just too busy listening to the music. The soundtrack by Plus Tech, ooh, it's really good. It's got this energetic 16-bit style, and well, yeah, there's only like 5 songs currently, so I don't really have much to say. Every song is just, oh, it's good stuff. The boss theme being a particular highlight, because it's got that sense of urgency, and it's super catchy, which makes those fights 10 times better. You find these bosses at the end of every stage, and I really enjoyed those fights. The first one is a big ass robot scorpion with saws for hands, which is just a bit... Yeah, that's a great design. It'll try to poke and slice you with fair and readable attacks, and I really like this move where he uses the saws to chop down the windmills, which is a hazard established earlier on in the level, so you see it and you already know what to do. That's not to say it's an easy fight, oh no, it's still a challenge, but it feels about right. When you deal enough damage to a saw, it will fall off, which will make him a bit weaker, and once all the parts has been destroyed, it will begin to open up its final weak point, and while firing dangerous missiles at you. I think this boss is fantastic. The only thing that kinda bothers me is if you collect the laser upgrade before the fight, you can absolutely melt the saws at record speed. It's the first level though, so it isn't really something I care about, and even then, doing that required at least some prior knowledge of the fight. While I love that first boss, I think the second one is good, but I don't know, it's like a little passive, maybe? It's this cool robot worm that flies at you at the start, and then it starts to use its projectile attacks. There's this one where it'll fly across the screen and fire missiles that'll land once it's mostly off screen. You can fire at it when it's going across, but you're going to have to stop firing to avoid the pretty easy pattern. The worst offender being this attack because, as you can see, the best option is to stand still and fire away, which, yeah, no, I don't need to really say why I don't like that. The other attacks are good though. It spends a lot of time either off screen or getting into position for an attack, and that's probably why it felt a bit off to me, especially compared to how aggressive the first boss felt. You may have noticed how I haven't talked about the story, and that's because it hasn't been implemented into the game yet, which is completely fine, it is an early demo after all. But all I really know from reading the Kickstarter page is that the main character is basically a monkey, and she's against a terrorist group known as Zodiac. This page also reveals that there's plans for 12 main levels and multiple routes once the game has been fully completed. I really have faith in this project, and in fact this is the first time I've ever backed something on Kickstarter. I had a blast throughout, even with its very minor bumps here and there. The fact that somebody who hasn't even played Star Fox or Space Harrier or any game similar to it can still have a great time shows that this isn't just nostalgia speaking. This is just a damn good game, and well, I'm not alone with this opinion, because it got its funding in under 24 hours, which just puts a smile on my face. I was gonna put this big call to action telling you better fund this game, I want it to be done. Kinda did it in 24 hours, I guess I don't need to, but I'd seriously still recommend it. It's got a banging soundtrack, fantastic presentation, and fun gameplay. There's a free demo to check out, and if you think it's a grand time, then check out the Kickstarter. When the game fully launches, I'll come back and make a video on the full game. I hope I'll see you then.